There is a distinction between two also. But the theme which is chosen today for the International Yoga Day, in fact, this is one of the very few days which is observed very religiously. Other days are just observed very tentatively. So, what is the theme for today? You must have seen that yoga are practicing every day. What is the theme of this today's day? Probably one world, something like that. One health. So when we say 1 planet, 1 health, the message is more universal. And the message is more corresponding to the teaching of Vedanta. Even though it's a yoga day, there the meaning is, this individual health and universal health are interdependent. That's the message, That if you are healthy, society will be healthy. If society is healthy, will be healthy like that. But this in essence is spirit of Vedanta. So although it's a theme for the International Yoga Day, the theme is basically more closer to Vedanta than to yoga per se. That's what we can say. So that's a good coincidence. As you all know, you have studied also that yoga and Vedanta both happen to be part of Indian philosophy. Correct? I think you have got separate subject also, right? And that is called as a Astik Darshana. Right? So I think you have studied in depth. So we have got two types of Darshana in India, Astik Darshana and Astik Darshana. Astik Darshana is what? The philosophies which believe in authority of Vedas. That is Astik Darshana. Not the God per se. The Darshana which believe in the authority of Veda, they are called as Astik Darshana. And the ones which do not recognize Veda as the ultimate authority, they are called as Nastik Darshana. That's what you know, right? We are not so much worried about Nastik Darshana because we are all Astik. How does the word Astik come from? The word Astik comes from Asti. It comes from Asti. And Asti means existence. In that Sat Chit Ananda, we call it Sat Chit and Ananda. There is Asti, Bhati and Priya. Existence. Now what is existence? Not all that we see only. So existence is both. What is Vyakta or what is perceived by us and what is also Avyakta, what is not perceived by us. So we perceive by our instruments of knowledge, which is all different indriyas, Chakshurendriya, Shrotrendriya, 5 indriyas are there, and through the mind. So this is Vyakta. And what is Avyakta is, what is the English word for Vyakta and Avyakta? Like when you commonly say Vyakta and Avyakta, right? What are the very common used English words for that? Immanent and transcendent. Immanent and transcendent. So when we talk of the reality, reality comprises of two things. Existence, whatever exists, that is real. And that existence is both what is immanent and what is transcendent. So what can be seen, what can be perceived by the senses, mind and the intellect, that normally we call it as a Vyakta. And the Avyakta is transcendent. So something which cannot be perceived by the organs of knowledge and mind. So when you say this Vedanta philosophy, it talks about what? It talks about immanent or transcendent? Or both? Because Vedanta is about unity, or we may call oneness of self, unity or oneness of existence, we may call, or unity and oneness of consciousness. So this is the only philosophy which does not exclude anything. Vedanta includes it. That's a very interesting thing to understand. Now when we say existence, in what are the different forms we see existence? And existence, ultimately whatever we see manifested in the world, basically that is manifested from the supreme reality, which is Nirguna, Nirakara, Avyakta. So from that transcendental reality, which is Nirguna, Nirakara, that's what you can manifest in world as well. So how many different ways this manifestation has taken place? Because Vedanta will include everything. Vedanta does not exclude anything. Even matter also is included in Vedanta. So how many different forms of existence are there, or how many different forms of manifestations are there? Yeah. How many? 84 lakh units are there. That is species, correct? But that is one way of looking at it. That 84 species which refer more to what is called as a sentient or this sajiva entity, correct? When we say existence, everything is glass is existence, book is existence, mic is existence, correct? So when you say existence as a whole, I am saying Panchabhuta is true, but Panchabhuta also physically refers to matter. Panchabhuta also refers to matter. So when you say anything which is there in the world is basically comprising of Panch Mahabhutas, you are right? And there are Sthul Mahabhutas, gross, you all know, which are there. And then, what about mind and intellect? Are they made of Panch Mahabhutas or not? Yes. What is the difference? No? Before Panchikarana. So that part is multiplication they call, correct? So before Panchikarana means they were there in subtle form. They were there in subtle form. So all those 5 Mahabhutas, that is Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jad and Prithvi, they are there in subtle form and they are called as Tanmatras. They are called as Tanmatras. But that is what we don't directly see. Right? That is the subtle form. And when the grossification happens, we get multiplication, and out of the 5 elements, the whole existence comes into being. And that is what is normally called as Jagat. That is normally called as Jagat. So this Jagat is, in a way, you can call Shar. In Bhagavad Gita, we have got this 6 Shar, Akshara and Purushottama, right? So this will fall in the category of Shar. One which is born and one which dies. Or one which transforms constantly, you can say like that also. And when we say Om Shanti, 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 there one of the Shanti corresponds to this. And which Shanti is this? Adi Bhautik. That is Adi Bhautik. So any kind of restlessness, any kind of discomfort which experience because of this phenomenal world of Panch Mahabhutas, that is called as Adi Bhautik Ashanti, and we pray for relief from that. So one of the manifestation is Adi Bhautik Jagata, what we normally regard as Jagata. Now that comprises of sentient and insentient creatures also. Correct? Then there is one thing called Adhyatmik also. One is Adi Bhautik, that is also called as Kshara, it is also called as Kshetra in 13th chapter. There is one more existence which is called as Adi Daivik is there and Adhyatmik is also there. Correct? So when you say Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So before we come to Adi Daivika, what do we mean by Adhyatmik? Because Adhyatmik is also something which has come into being. So what is Adhyatmik according to you? In the physico, psycho, spiritual personality that we have, what is Adhyatmik? Do we have anything Adi Bhautik in ourselves first of all? Or not? When you say Adi Bhautik is the matter, and matter is the whole created world. We are not different from the world. We are a part and parcel of the world. Correct? So this particular physical body, this individual mind, this individual buddhi is also a part of that Shara. It is also part of Adi Bhautika. Correct? But only difference is that this body is gross, mind, intellect are subtle Mahabhutas. But then there is still a matter. It is not the spirit. It is not the spirit. So one thing what we call is Adi Bhautika, which does not include only this Jagata, but it also includes the matter composition of this individual being. All the physical body and the organs that we see is made up of that gross elements, and inside that we have got mind, intellect, all those things which are subtle. That is also called Adi Bhautika. So what is Adhyatmik then? Adhyatmik is the spirit, this spark of divinity, what we commonly call as Atman, which is manifesting through these actions or through these instruments. That is what is called as Adhyatmik. But because our mind and intellect and prana are very close to our inner self, and they lead us to that, in many scriptures and in many quotations we will find this body, mind, intellect also referred to as the Atma or Adhyatma. Understand? Right? But in the real sense, they are matter, either gross or subtle. But the spirit, the divinity, the spark of divinity which is, we can say, within us and which gets manifested through these upadhis, that is exactly called as Adhyatmika, and that is in Bhagavad Gita, 13th chapter, we call it as a Kshetragna. We call it as a Kshetragna. So this Kshetra and Kshetragna both are manifestations of divine. They have not, because nothing else exists other than divine. So how everything else can be there? So what we say is Kshetra, what we say is Kshetragna. One is the matter, one is the objects, and the other person is the experiencer of that. So we have got Adi Bhautika Jagat and we have got Adhyatmik Jagat also. And when we say I, Atman, we normally have the feeling, that this particular Atman is something which is residing in me. The other gentleman is there, another soul is residing in that. So actually it is not a divisible thing. So Atman is one and non-dual. It is not many, it is not even two. But because of our identification, false identification, with this BMI, body, mind, intellect, apparatus, we feel as if one Jivatma is here, one Jivatma is here, one Jivatma is here. But the Vedanta basically here they say that not only Jagata, but even what we call as Jiva and what is the innermost essence of us, that is one and non-dual, and it is equally pervading in each and every human being. That is what is called as Adhyatmik. Now, what is Adidevik then? Where does Adidevik go? What, according to you, is Adidevik? Because when you say whole created world is Adibhautik, correct? And when you say that Samasti, Gasti and Samasti, everything is a part of that. Now then, what is Adidevik? See, one we have the object, one we have the subject. Correct? One we have the field, one we have the experiencer of the field. Correct? This is what we know, duality. Then what is Adidevika? Adidevika, there are different explanations in different books. But in one of the simplest things I learned from Swami Krishnanji Maharaj is that Adidevika, what we normally call as Daivam or divine, different gods, deities, not exactly the Paramatma, the deities, which are presiding besides our physical existence. So, for example, we have got this eye, that's Chakshurendriya. Now, the deity is there. There is a deity corresponding to each Indriya. There is a deity corresponding to Prana. It is that deity which regulates the function of this particular Indriya. So, the deity Sun in this case, which gives power of viewing or power of vision to Chakshurendriya, that is referred to as Adidevika. Likewise, all organs what we have, the entire physiology that we have, there is some deity which is regulating that. Otherwise, such a complex mechanism body, we have got plenty and millions of biochemical reactions and too many genes expressing at different times. How can it happen? Unless and until there is some kind of a link which connects the subject and the object. And that deity what we regard. Even for that example, let us see universe also. So we have got this manifested world of the Jagata. And we see that drought, earthquake and tsunami and many things happening. And how is it that the nature is regulating itself? We may do a lot of harm to the nature, but the nature has its own corrective mechanism. That is because there is some kind of a deity which regulates the function of the entire manifested Jagat. And that is called as Adidevika. But that is what we normally don't experience, But then this is what is known to us, what is Kshara and what is Akshara. Like that, correct? So what is Adibhautikam and what is Adhyatmika. So Vedanta basically, is something which talks about the ultimate reality, which is both manifest and the unmanifest, immanent and transcendent. It excludes nothing. Right? That's the beauty of this system of Indian philosophy that we have. Then we say that Upanishad is the subject that we want to discuss today, correct? And Vedanta is also there. How are these two words connected? are the same thing or they refer to any difference? Normally we take them to be synonymous, correct? Upanishad and Vedanta, we take them to be synonymous. Are they same or there is some difference? So Vedanta, as I said, is a philosophy. Vedanta, as I said, is a vision, correct? And if you listen to some of the modern, not modern, but some of the traditional teachers of Vedanta, who talk at a very fundamental level, the way Rishi Munis have seen. One such Vedanti Mahatma is Swami Dayananda Saraswati. Right? And it is very good book. I have that teaching tradition of Vedanta. I have seen that he does not regard Vedanta as one of the systems of philosophy. What we commonly understand, correct? Shad Darshana we understand. And you identify that there are 6 systems are there. What are they? Vaisheshika, Nyaya, Yoga, Sankhya, Uttar Mimamsa and Upar Mimamsa. Or Uttar Mimamsa is called Vedanta. So these are called the 6 systems of philosophy or Darshan Shastra. Right? And he has given a very profound depth explanation, which explains, that Vedanta cannot be considered as a system of philosophy because it is basically Swata Siddha. It does not want to prove anything else. It tells about its own self. So this is considered not as a system of philosophy, but this is something which is considered as a very authentic, very reliable means of knowledge, like they say. But that's a very different way of looking at the whole thing. But let us understand this way that you may consider it as one of the systems of philosophy, there is no problem. Yeah.
You were talking about Dayananda Saraswati, you were talking about Arya Samaj or Ashram?
No, this Ashram. Dayananda Saraswati Maharaj has got a very different view about that. Right? So we are not referring to it. We are referring to who are concordant with right now our tradition, Shivanji Maharaj and all that. Right? Because he also happens to be one of the descendants from that sense, from Sivananda Maharaj. But he is a very basic, in-depth scholar of Vedanta and he talks at more fundamental level. Now let us look at something what Swami Shivananda Maharaj says about Vedanta also. Vedanta, as he said, let us take it as one of the systems of philosophy. No problem with that. Right? And Swami Shivananda Maharaj says that Vedanta is basically the heart of the Indian philosophy. It is the crown jewel of the Indian philosophy. It is something which has kept the Sanatana Dharma alive, for the last 8,000 years. And that's the core essence of what we Indians are. It's a national philosophy also, he says, and has kept the Hindu society alive for the last 8,000 years. And in a very simple way, Swamiji says that it redefines the equation between human and divine. It redefines the equation between human and divine. We may call Jiva and Ishvara or Jiva and Brahman. So everybody has got some idea about Jiva or what am I. Jiva is I, myself, right? And everybody has got some idea about that Brahman or Supreme Reality also. So we have got some understanding about ourselves, individual self as Jiva and universal self as Brahman. But we regard them not as one. We regard them as different entities. That we are the sadhaka, one who is performing sadhana, and the supreme reality which is called as Brahman. The most correct English translation is supreme reality, what Swamiji Maharaj used to say. The supreme reality of the Brahman is the sadhya. We are the sadhaka, and we have to perform sadhana all throughout our life in order that we may be able to attain that supreme reality. That is the normal understanding. Even after reading Vedanta also, this kind of internal feeling doesn't go away. Because we are the sadhaka and instead then you reach that particular reality. So this is the equation what we have in our mind. And in that Vedanta, Chandogya Mahavakya, they say Tat Tvam Asi. So that Tat is about that supreme reality. So that Tat refers to what? When you say Tat Tvam Asi, that Tat refers to what then? Ishvara. And it also refers to manifested word called Jagat. So when you use the word Tattvamasi, that equation, this is probably the most fundamental or the most resounding equation. We may have a number of equations in our life, but you can't have any parallel to this particular equation. That says Tattvamasi. Now that Tat is what? Tat is that manifested word which is called as Idam. what is called as idam. So anything which I consider myself other than me, that is idam, the whole jagata, and the sutradhara, or the substratum of that manifested word is called Ishvara. So Tatpad, as you say, rightly refers to Ishvara, but in a deeper sense it also includes that jagata. And when we have this cause and effect analysis, ultimately we go on probing the cause of jagata, then we go on ending at what is called the causeless cause, that is Ishvara. Right? That is the Tatpada, which includes both Ishvara, who is the ruler, the controller of this jagata, and the manifested world also. Both are implied by the word Tattva. And Tvam is what? Tvam is this, that is Samashti, and this is Vyashti. What I understand myself to be, as I said, the psycho, physico, spiritual personality. We all think, that I have got the body, I have got the mind, I have got the intellect, and within that resides the Atman. That's the belief that we have. And we never regard these two as equal. Why? Because Shastra says they are the same. That's the beauty. And we think that they are not the same. So why is it like this? Because both have got Upadhi, understand. Ishvara also has Upadhi. Jiva also has Upadhi. Right? It is not that Ishvara is Nirguna Nirakara and there is no Upadhi. But when you consider Ishvara as omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, that Ishvara is Saguna Sakha Ishvara. That also has got Upadhi. Just as we also have got Upadhi. So when you say you are the omnipresent, omnipotent and omniscient. So these are superimpositions upon Paramatman. Why these words have come? Why these words have come? Because Srishti has come. Creation has come. If creation was not there, the words omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient are also not required. Right? So why omnipresent? Why do we call God as omnipresent? There is a technical reason for that. Yes. What would we say?
Because Jivatma is there.
Huh?
Jivatma is saying the omnipotent, omniscient.
Okay. Let me put in a more simplistic way.
God is all pervading.
God is pervading. But let us understand why is all pervading. Why God is all pervading? That's the question, right? You are omnipresent. How can then God be all pervading? The reason is the supreme reality, Paramatma or Brahman, they are equal words, correct? Is the material cause for this universe. Is the material cause for this universe. Correct? So material cause is there. So what will happen? That supposing this particular article is there. Now the article is there, the steel, stainless steel metal which is there has to be there. Only then this particular, whenever I see the pot, I always see the clay. I cannot think of a pot without the clay. So because Hindu Dharma Shastra and Vedanta is the only philosophy which tells that supreme reality is the material cause of the universe. No other system of philosophy will say this. It is the material cause. So, when the world has come from that particular Ishvara, Satchidananda, that it has to be there. That Sat part in the Satchidananda, that is Sarvavyapaka. Right? Because anything that has come into being has come from the supreme reality, and it is the material cause. From it only, without changing itself, this particular thing has come into being. That is why it is called as Sata, and that is it is called as Sarvavyapaka. I hope you understand exactly what is the message, right? That because from the material, the Paramatman, that is Vastu they call, this Jagat has come, and that is why it is called pervasive. That is called as Sat. And what is meant by the Chit and Ananda, or what is called as omnipotent and omniscient, omnipresent is clear, because it is the material cause. So it has come from that. So anything, whatever has come from that, that basic element has to be there. So that is why it is called omnipresent. Now why it is omnipotent and omniscient? Because God is not only Upadan Karan, or the material cause, but the God is also Nimitta Karan, or the instrumental cause. So supposing there is a potter and they want to make a pot, they need to have a knowledge about it. Or if you want to draw a picture, you want to have a knowledge about a particular object, and you need power also. Supposing we have got the knowledge of the pot, but we cannot make a pot. because we do not have that particular trick or that particular technique. So this is a pretty technical subject matter, but still very easy to understand that because God is a material cause, that is Upadana Karana as they call, it is pervading everywhere, and that is called as a Sat. And because God, Paramatman or Supreme Reality is an instrumental cause, it had the knowledge how this world has to be created, and it had the ability also. That is why the word omnipotent and omniscient. Because that Supreme Reality had the idea what should be the shape of the world, how it should be functioning, and that is how the creation came. Because creation is an intelligent creation, it is not an ordinary thing. See, if we create something small also, we don't know it will happen after some time it disintegrate. How can a creation which is there for the last so many years, so many centuries, and when thousands of years there is a sunlight is there, how can it behave so systematically in a so orderly manner? Unless and until there is a supreme intelligence behind it. There is a supreme intelligence behind it. So because Ishvara is both Nimitta Karana and Upadana Karana. Upadana Karana is Sat. And because of its being Nimitta Karana, it had the ability and knowledge of the thing which it wanted to create. So it is called as omnipotent and omniscient. Sarvasaktiman or Sarvagya. So I hope this is a pretty technical thing, but still very easy to understand that is how this Sat Chit Ananda word has come. Correct? And that is what God says. Now how do we say that this Satchidananda Jagat is there? Or I am Satchidananda. If it has come from that Satchidananda Paramatma, then we should be able to see Satchidananda also here. So how do we see that? Sat means existence. Sat means existence. So because anything exists, it signifies that Sat part. Only difference is what existence, what we see is temporary. What existence, what we see is relative. What existence, what we see is dependent. It is not the independent existence, correct? It depends upon something. So that is how the Sat is there, but there is limitation also in that, correct? But Sat, what we see is this, that anything in nature exists, so it is called Sat. And likewise, what about ourselves individual? We also feel for sure that they exist. Correct? Nobody ever feels I do not exist. Even an atheist doesn't think that I do not exist. So nobody has got the bhava of one's own existence. So Sat is a part of the nature if you see, or Sat is a part of my individual existence, what I consider also. That I am Sat, I know I exist. Now Chit is what? Jnana. So what reflects it? What is revealed to others, So when you look at the flower, when you look at the fruit, or when our own self is there, I know I exist. So there is a revelation also. So that is called the Chit also. The Chit is also called as Jnana, is also called as the revelation. But only thing is that this particular Jnana what we have is relative, is not absolute. When you talk of Paramatman, it is absolute Sat, absolute Chit, absolute Ananda. Independent by itself, absolutely, correct? And all inclusive. Whereas when you talk of the manifested Jagata, it is what? Relative. So it is there in particular point of time. And after some time it will not be there. That is why it is called as Mithya. So Mithya doesn't mean Sat is not there. But it is neither Sat nor Asat. So because it is there, it is Sat. And it doesn't exist forever, that is how it is Asat. So that is what is called as the Mithya, or that is called as the dependent existence. Correct? So this is all that we see, likewise is Sat, Chit and Ananda. So everything in the world is able to contribute or give some kind of Ananda or some kind of joy. Any object in the world is there, will be of some use to any individual. Correct? So even if there is a excreta, a human excreta is there, for example, normally we go to the early morning, and then ultimately the excreta just put as flush and then forget about that. But then there are plenty of bacteria inside that which are able to decompose that fecal matter and transform into nature. So this utility part is there in every created entity. There is not a single created entity which does not have some kind of utility or usefulness. It may not be useful to some, but useful to somebody. Because these are all relative existence, relative knowledge, relative bliss. And this bliss, what we get from any worldly object or any senses, is relative. Right? But the absolute bliss is the nature of the self. And that absolute bliss is also called as Ananta also. Because one way we call Parabrahman is Satchit Ananda. And in the Chandogya Upanishad we call Satyam, Jnanam, Ananta. We say. Right? But Ananta is something very important. That which gives infinity to Sat and which gives infinity to Chit also. So Ananta is something, the bliss also likewise, all other bliss is finite. Supposing we get any bliss from eating any delicious item, we get sometimes happiness by reading something, and when you understand something, new subject, you also get a bliss. Nidra, in the sleep also we get some kind of a bliss. So all these bliss are nothing but they are the reflection of the bliss or the Atman that is there. So that Sat Chit Ananda or Satyam Jnanam Anantam, that is the nature of Supreme Reality, and that Supreme Reality is nothing other than our own self. See, everybody knows that what is God and Paramatman. Everybody has an idea, they're all pervasive, omnipotent, omniscient, everything. And everybody has an idea about one's own self also. But no philosophy in the world will ever say that, you are one in essence with that same Supreme Reality. And that identity equation will not be true from the point of view of instrument, from the point of view of upadhis that we have. But if you exclude the upadhi, then there is identity. That's the equation when we say tat tvam asi. So upadhi that we have is limited in terms of this body, in terms of this mind, in terms of the intellect. And these upadhis come from ajnana. Upadhis come from ajnana. So what are these they called? Ajnana upahita chaitanya. What are they called? Ajnana upahita chaitanya. So Chaitanya is consciousness, Paramatma, that is as if covered, as if not revealed to us by Ajnana. So Ajnana, and all five kleshis is coming from that. Right? So basically Ajnana is our upadhi, and it is Ajnana which is basically the causal body. Basically the causal body. From that we get subtle body, from that we get the gross body. So this is our upadhi, Ajnana. Right? And what is the upadhi of the Ishvara? Ishvara also is Sagun Saka. So it is also not object in Nirgun Niraka. Ishvara also is Upadi. It is Maya Upadi. So what you refer to as Maya in the universal sense is taken as Ajnana in the individual sense. So what is Maya for Ishvara? That is Ajnana for a Jiva. So one is Maya, Upahit Chaitanya, that is Ishvara, and one is Ajnana, Upahit Chaitanya. So both common is Chaitanya. What is not common is Ajnana. What is not common is Maya. Ajnana and Maya. Although in our sense, Ajnana, it represents Maya. And basically through mind it reflects. So most of the experience in mind. Right? But Ajnana and Maya, they are not identical in one sense. And other main fundamental difference is that Jiva is under the influence or command of avidya or the environment. So avidya commands Jiva. Avidya and its manifestations in form of that body, mind, intellect, ahankara, all the manifestations are there. They command and they control us, or what is called as Jiva. Because Jiva has identified itself with that. That is how this problem. If Jiva had known it itself to be independent of Upadhi, then there is no problem. But because we have befriended with them, because we have made them part of our intimate partner, they have taken us our charge. And that is how we are under their influence. But that is not the case in case of Ishvara. Maya is not under the influence of Maya is under the influence of Ishvara is not under the influence of Maya. So Maya, Bhagavan, so many cases you will see, Daivi Esha Gunamayi, Huma Maya Guratteya, Mam Eva Padinte Maya Metam Karandu. So this Maya is Daivi, Bhagavan says, Daivi Esha Gunamayi, Huma Maya Guratteya. It is my own power, imponderable, unthinkable, indescribable. And if you want to win over that Maya, then you have to make shelter. This is a very, very famous sloka of Bhagavad Gita, this 7th chapter, 14th sloka. That is, Maya is Paramatma and it is its creation. So in Srimad Bhagavata also, is also referred to Yoga Maya. And in the whole existence of Bhagavan Sri Krishna also, Maya is accompanying him and supporting him. That is what happens in the lives of all great Mahapurushas. But in our case, what happens? That this Ajnana basically is controlling us. That is the problem that we have. And the biggest problem with Ajnana that we have is in terms of finiteness which we have. Limitations what we have. See, they explain like this, that there is a rock and a snake, very common example which they give in Vedanta also, right? There is a rope and a snake. Now, why do we experience snake? Because why we experience that? It is not that we don't see the rope. It is not that we don't see the rope. We see the rope, in some way, not exactly. We know something is lying. We don't know it's a rope. Supposing we had known it's a rope, there will be no delusion, no bhranti. Right? So we have got some knowledge, which is called as apparent knowledge. Correct? Samanya jnana, apparent knowledge, but not the true knowledge of that. Right? And because of that, this particular illusion has come. So, first of all, there is a twilight. What is the word called twilight? You know what is twilight? Neither light nor darkness. In English, that what is called as a twilight. So, in a condition of twilight, we have neither light nor darkness. We see something. And that is how, we have got some knowledge, some particular thing we are seeing, that we are able to experience it as a snake, and the fear that bhranti comes. Likewise, in Vedanta, they say that Satchit Ananda means it is not that I don't know anything about myself. Everybody knows I am Sat, I exist. Everybody knows I am Chit, means I am reflecting and I am experiencing myself, I have Jnana also. But the problem is, Sat Chit Ananda, what they say, what Ananda is same as Ananta actually, the actual meaning is that. So we know as Sat, myself, although limitedly, I know as Chit, but the way Ananta, or the Ananda, I do not know myself. So that is how this finiteness comes. Now all sorts of miseries that come to us. Now let us say how we are Satchidananda, another simplistic way we like to say, right? Now what other way we can say is we are Satchidananda? Now see, do we like to live for some time? Everybody likes that there should be 100 years of life, there should be a good life. And when I am not existing, what should happen? That there should be my photograph, I should have written some book, people can read after my departure. I may create a progeny so that can carry forward my impressions like that. So what does it mean? This means that Sata existence, Trikalapi Tishtati is Sat. This is the definition, correct? Trikalapi Tishtati is Sat. What exists in past, present and future. And beyond time also. So, because our Surupa is Sata, we always think, that I should ever exist. But because we do not know that as an Atman, we are Sat, and we identify ourselves with this body, mind, intellect. That is why this problem starts. So because we know this body is going to die after some time, and there are diseases, there are limitations, correct? So I consider myself as Martya or the dead because of my identification with this body. But Sat is there, so I always want to remain. I always want to subsist. I never want to cease to be. Right? And that is why we are not experiencing it, because instead of soul, we are looking at the body as myself. So this problem comes that the Sat is not experienced to us. Right? Now then when you say Chit, means what? Chit refers to things. Chit refers to Jnana. It also refers to Shakti. It refers to the knowledge as well as power. So why do we always want to know everything? Supposing we are just traveling and somebody is reading newspaper or some book and some pages are there, even from a distance we just try to see what is there, even though we are not connected. Or something happens outside, we don't have considered what happened. So we always want to know something. We never want to be ignorant about anything. Why? Our Swarupa is Chit. So knowledge or Jnana is our Swarupa. So trying to learn anything wherever possible, we always try to do. But we always try to know the things from the finite world. So whatever knowledge that we have is objective knowledge. Right? That is pertaining to object. Particular object pertaining to particular manifested world. And that is Savishesh Jnana, Jnana about something. But the Atman Bhagavan, they say Satchit is absolute knowledge. That is objectless consciousness. The knowledge which is all pervasive, the knowledge is all inclusive, that's called as absolute knowledge. So absolute knowledge is my swarupa, is my swabhava. But because I have identified myself with buddhi, so limited comes. When I identify with body, that martya or the death will come. When I identify myself with the buddhi, whenever I get some idea, I feel yes, I learned it, I enjoyed it. When I don't follow something, I feel it's a dull session, I'm very sorry I didn't follow it. But why is it that? Because we identify ourselves with the intellect of the buddhi. Jnana will take place in buddhi only, any kind of jnana will take place in buddhi. But identifying itself as myself, that's the problem. So, these limitations of jnana will come. So, but with the fact that we always want to know something, it shows that we are Chit Swarupa. But because we want to know only through buddhi, that is why it becomes the limitations. And then there is Ananda. So everybody knows that Ananda is something which is each and every individual seeks, like in any form, at any point of time. And we are getting that Ananda by pursuing different delicious things what we like.